Okay, so we're gonna review
It was so fun.
for the 6 weeks test. So you have a formula chart, and on the formula chart on the test will be all the formulas, like the one you just got, so you might want to use it. The other thing you probably want to look at is your unit circle. If you don't have that out, we're going to need it as well. So let's start with number 1. Guys, it's recording. Let's start with number 1. Okay, 1, 2, and 3, guys, are what they are called, I guess, in condensed form. Okay, so just let me tell you really quick. If it's in condensed form like this, remember your job is to expand it. But look, turn then even here. See, condensed, I'm going to expand. On 6, it's condensed, I'm going to expand, right? Do y'all see the pattern? But if you turn all the way to problem 19, a problem 19, like 19 is expanded, and your job is to condense it. So they go both ways, if you remember. So if we turn to number 1, okay, you're going to find the exact value of cosine of 75. Okay, and if you look at the cosine, you have a couple of options here. Okay, and the one I'm going to use are these two. I can do alpha plus beta or alpha minus beta. It doesn't make any difference, and whichever one you use, you're going to get the same answer. As long as your alpha and your beta add or subtract to get 75. Now, so that we all use the same 2 angles for right now, what 2 angles can you think of that are going to add to 75?
30, 45.
Yeah, 45 and 30. Okay, so let's start with that then. This is the same thing as cosine of 45 plus 30. And if you use your formula, okay, then by looking at it, that's cosine alpha cosine beta minus sine alpha sine beta. Your job is to expand it. Just write that down. Which means we're going to write down cosine of 45 cosine of 30. And remember, we changed the sign. So then we made minus sine of 45 sine of 30. And then we found each value on the unit circle. So you take your unit circle out and find the value at cosine of 45. And you get root 2 over 2. You find the value of cosine of 30. And you get root 3 over 2. Minus, now you're going to use sine. So sine at 45 is root 2 over 2. And sine at 30 is 1/2. Now guys, remember you have to follow order of operations, right? So we gotta do the multiplication here, do the multiplication there, then you're allowed to subtract. But are you allowed to do the multiplication of these kind in your calculator? No, remember this is by hand. So if I was gonna multiply this would be root 2 times root 3, which would be root 6. So I'm gonna do the math over here. So the first answer is root 6. Guys, if you have a phone out, put it away. Okay. The 6 weeks test is important. It replaces a major grade. Okay? So please try your best. 1, 2 times 2 is 4. Then you have a minus, and you're going to multiply the numerators. Root 2 times 1 is root 2. And then 2 times 2 is 4. I don't know if you remember, but then we would end up writing our final answer since they both have the same denominator. We would just put them all over 4. So root 6 minus root 2. And be real careful to watch your signs because it's multiple choice for the most part. So like a negative root 6 is going to be there or a positive root 2. So your signs matter. Okay, now doing the same idea, now that you kind of got the hang of it, let's try cosine of 285. Notice you're going to expand it. And it doesn't matter. The 2 numbers I add up to be 285 and the 2 numbers you add up to be 285, if they're different, we're still going to get the same answer. So look at your unit circle and come up with 2 numbers that give you 285. But before you start, let's use the same ones. Look at your unit circle. Find some numbers that are going to give you 285. Yeah, that's what we used last period too. He said, how about cosine of 240 plus 45? That's going to give me 285. Now I'm gonna go back to my formula chart. And there's two cosine alpha plus betas, one's plus, one's minus, right? So find it on your formula chart. Okay, it's right here, cosine alpha plus beta, cosine, cosine, sine, sine, this one. And we're gonna use that formula. Okay, so now we're at cosine 240, cosine of 45, minus sine of 240, sine of 45. And you find each value on your unit circle. So cosine of 240 is negative 1/2. Cosine of 45 is root 2 over 2. Sine of 240 is negative root 3 over 2. And sine of 45 is positive root 2 over 2. You have to watch your signs here. Now on the first part, remember you multiply and multiply. Okay, so we're gonna multiply these together first. A 1 and a 2 are gonna give me negative root 2 over 4. And then I've got a minus sign in the middle, there it is. Then you're gonna multiply these together, right, which gives me negative root 6 over 4. What are the two negatives gonna do? Turn to positive. So your final answer is negative root 2 plus root 6 all over 4. Okay, now let's go to number 3 and 4. 3 and 4, the directions are both tangent 105, tangent 15. Okay, the formulas for tangent to expand would be these two. Okay, and what is the rule for tangent? What do we avoid for tangent? Right. If you're looking at your unit circle right now, you'll remember we avoided anything that was a fraction. Root 3 over 3, negative root 3 over 3. We avoided the ones that were, we avoided the ones that had root 3 over 3. And the reason is because it's already a fraction. And if I put a fraction on top and a fraction on bottom, I'm going to end up with a complex fraction and it's even harder. So we're going to try to avoid that. Okay? So if I avoid those values, I'm going to use tangent of 105. How can I come up with 105? Okay, I can use 60 and 45. And if you use those values, you can look at your formula chart and expand it. Okay, it turns into tangent of 60 plus tangent of 45 over 1 minus tangent of 60 times tangent of 45. And because they're on the unit circle, we're going to find the values. So tangent of 60 is root 3. This is the same thing as root 3. Tangent of 45 is 1, so here's your plus 1. And in the denominator, you do 1 minus, and then these values, which you already have, you multiply together. So tangent of 60 was root 3, so I'm going to do root 3 times tangent of 45. So my final answer, I'm going to simplify this part right here. So my final answer would be root 3 plus 1 over 1 minus root 3. Okay, now for number 4, I'm gonna give you a second to try the problem. Okay, but the answer is root 3 minus 1 over 1 plus root 3. You can check and see if you can get that right, number 4. I'll give you a second to try that one. Alright, so that was the answer to number 4. So let's move on. It's been a while maybe since you've drawn one of these triangles. Okay, but it gives us some information. Remember, it will give us information about alpha and beta. So here's alpha. It says cosine is 15 over 17. It gives us information about beta. It says cosecant. What do we write instead of cosecant? What's the reciprocal of cosecant? Do y'all remember? Right, sine. So I'm going to go ahead and cross this off and say that it's the same thing as sine of beta, and we flip it. And use that instead. Now, it will give you information about alpha and beta. So let's draw a picture of alpha first. So here's your triangle. Here's alpha. The first thing it tells us is alpha is between 0 and pi over 2. Right, so this would be 0, remember, and this is pi over 2. So I know it's in quadrant 1. If you've forgotten, because we draw those airplanes and everything, so to draw these triangles, you go out, and where do you always come back to? The x. Always back to the x. Out and always back to the x. So that this is the angle that you're working with. And because this is alpha, this is the information it gave us about alpha, cosine. Cosine's adjacent over hypotenuse, right? And I'm talking about of that angle right there that I shaded. And we always remember adjacent's always the x-axis. So that means that this is 15 and that this is 17. Yes, then you'll be asked to find the other leg. Remember when you have a hypotenuse and a leg, you subtract. So you're taking 17 squared minus 15 squared, which will give you 64. And you take the square root of 64, which gives you 8. So now you have all 3 pieces. Okay, since I did alpha for you, you set up beta and see if you can set it up correctly. Because this is really your only opportunity on here to set up these by yourself. Watch out for your signs, I'll give you a hint. Remember, sometimes pieces of the triangle are considered to be negative. Right, try to set it up. Okay, so for beta it says it's between pi over 2 and pi, which means it's in quadrant 2. Remember, you go out and always connect back to the x-axis. So there's your picture. Agree? Okay, here's the angle I'm dealing with. Let's go over and see what they have to say about it. We've already taken care of the fact that it was cosecant. So now we're at sine, right? Which means opposite over hypotenuse. Agree with me? Opposite's y. So opposite of this angle would be this long, this right here, and the hypotenuse is 25. Again, I've got a hypotenuse and a leg, so I subtract. 25 squared minus 7 squared. Then you take the square root and you get 24, and then kids just walk away, which makes the problem wrong. Why am I wrong if I write 24 there? Good. Look for things to be negative. Okay? So for example here, this is negative because I went left. If you're in any quadrant other than 1, you're going to have a negative value. Okay? So knowing that we have all the triangle filled out, let's try to do number 5. Okay, let's try number 5. Sine alpha plus beta. Okay, so sine of alpha plus beta, and you can go back to your formula chart and you're just going to expand it the same as before. We've already, we've done cosine, we haven't done sine. So remember the formula is sine alpha, right, cosine beta, plus cosine alpha, sine beta. And then you just plug in the values from your 2 triangles you just made. And that's the reason that the signs are so important. So if I look at alpha to get sine, okay, then I'm going to get 8/17. if I look at beta to get cosine, negative 24 over 25. Plus, I'm gonna use this to get cosine, which they already gave me the problem. I'm gonna look at beta to get sine 7/25. Now these are the problems you can use your calculator for. So just get your calculator, type it straight in. Check it to be sure you're able to do the math, and you should get negative 87 over 425. Some kids get this right, and they still get the answer wrong because they've entered it in their calculator incorrectly. So be careful. Okay, number 6. Number 6 is find sine of 2 alpha. So you're going to get your formula chart out again and find me sine of 2 alpha. Okay, and you'll notice sine of 2 alpha has one equation right here. So 2 sine alpha, cosine alpha. So let's write that down. Okay, and fill in the information. Okay. Now then, cosine of alpha we already found. This is just 2 8/17, 15 over 17. And our answer is 240 over 289. Number 7. 7 is tangent alpha plus beta. Look at your formula chart. Find it. And it looks like this. Tangent alpha plus tangent beta over 1 minus tangent alpha times tangent beta. Okay. When you find tangent, that's opposite over adjacent, correct? So you're going to look at the triangles and do opposite over adjacent, which would be 8/15 plus 7 over negative 24, 1 minus the two values. Now, kids were asking me earlier when they got to this part, they weren't sure how to mathematically do it. Do you guys remember what to do here?
You do the top first.
Yeah, excellent. Just type in the top, write down the answer. Type in the bottom, write down the answer. Then divide it. So you can check your answers. 29 over 120 in the numerator and 52 over 45 in the denominator. When you divide those together, you get this. 87 over 416. Okay, is it coming back to you a little bit? Alright. So then, now try number 8.
Wait, what was the answer to number 7?
7 was 87 over 416. The test is confirmed. Okay, number 8. Find the formula sine of 2b. Sine of 2b. Does it matter that there's not a b on there? No, just use alpha. It's the same formula. So I'm just wanting you to take 2 times sine of beta cosine beta. So you're gonna use the beta triangle, not the alpha triangle. Alright, when you type it in, you should get negative 336 over 625 if you did it right. Alright, may I remember how to do number 9? What quadrant does this fall in? What was the secret to finding these? That's where I would give you that polar coordinate with all the little circles on it. So where do we start? Do we start with the negative 2 or do we start with the angle, the negative 45? Good. You always start with this. Start here. So if you think about it, okay, and we're back to the coordinate grid, not the compass rose. Do you see what I'm saying? So this would be 0, 90, 180. Okay, that's confusing sometimes. So long we've been going the other way. Okay, so this is back to the unit circle. So you start here. Where's negative 45 at? This is positive 45, so negative 45 is here, agree? You're in this quadrant. But if I want negative 2, I don't go towards negative 45, I go away. So I would go this direction. So I'm in quadrant 4. I'm sorry, 2. Okay, now understanding that, let's skip to problem 17. Try 17. I'll give you a second to try it. Okay, remember, always start at the angle. So if you started at 120, and we go the other way, so this is 90 and this is 180. So 120 is here. But then it's negative 3, so instead of going towards it, you go away from it, so you're in this spot right here. So it's quadrant 4. Okay, do you see why? All right, so once again, you're going this way, right? So 0, 90, 180, 270, like the unit circle. You always start at the angle, so 120 would be somewhere in here, like around here. But because it's negative 3, instead of going towards 120, go away from 120. Right now, let's go back. Okay, let's go back to the other side.